I'm really in the position where I need to set up a virtual environment for a new project that I'm going to do. So I thought I'd create an impromptu video and just record how I set up the environment and then activate it within PyCharm, just in case any of you want to use PyCharm for your deep learning projects. So I should mention PyCharm's completely free for students. You can see that this project is based on this code, this repository, deep person reid, and you can see that it's pretty complicated. You go into this torch reid, and then there's a bunch of stuff: losses, metrics, engines, different ones for images and for videos. I definitely don't want to set this up on my own. I want to have this all done automatically, so I don't need to worry about any of this stuff. Fortunately, they've given us a requirements.txt file, and I'm going to use that to create this environment. Now, I've probably created hundreds of these environments, but I haven't memorized any of the functions. I always just come back to this Conda cheat sheet. In this case, we're going to be looking for this one. This is going to create from a YAML file. It shouldn't be any different working from a requirements.txt. It's just going to be slightly different in that we don't have the environment name specified in the requirements.txt file. So I need to combine conda-env create, then give it the name, and then do the file requirements.txt. So let's give it a go. So for one thing, I've already downloaded this, extracted it using WinZip or Win7, whatever I'm using, and I've got this all good to go. So I just need to move to this folder. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to do this within the terminal because I find this easier. I should mention my Ubuntu is playing up recently, so I've moved everything over to Windows. You do get the odd teething problem, but for the most part it's completely fine to do deep learning within Windows. It's not like a few years ago where everything was Ubuntu. There's a lot more support for Windows now, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So I just need to cd to that file, to that folder, and then I need to use a combination of the Anaconda things that we were talking about. So we've got this conda create, name. I'm just going to call this torch reid, so that's going to be my environment name, and then I'm going to tell it that the file that we need to create the environment from is requirements.txt, and hopefully this will work. So you can see that we've had a problem where certain packages haven't been found. What I'm going to do is I've just created a backup of this requirements file, and I'm just going to delete the ones that haven't been found so that I can hopefully create the environment. It might be something to do with the fact that I am using Windows rather than Ubuntu, but we're going to delete it and see if we can get it working. And what I'm going to do is, maybe it's just that some of these requirements are not available within Anaconda, so I'm going to try and install them with Anaconda. I'll install the rest of these with Anaconda, and then for these ones that aren't available, I'm going to use pip instead to install them. So we'll see if that works. I've also noticed that this requirements.txt doesn't have Python or stuff like PyTorch or CUDA involved. So I'll install them at some point as well. Not to worry too much. I'm just going to say Python equals 3.7. Is it equals or is it equals equals? Just equals. Okay, so it's found all the packages that it wants to install here, and we'll just proceed. Okay, so I had a small error at some point. I think it was internet based rather than anything else. But now this package is activated, so it's installed. So now we can go and activate TorchReID if we want to. I'm just going to do it because I can, and it might be useful soon when I need to add additional libraries. So then in PyCharm, I'm going to create a new project. Oops. So now I've got this thing installed. I'm going to navigate to that file, which is going to be here. Okay, so this is my project path, and I don't want a new environment, I want previously configured interpreter. And yeah, so we find one of these and we go for a Conda environment, and this is the wrong one, so we look for the one that we've just created, which is torchreid/python.exe, and I'm going to make this available to all projects in case I want it for something else. Click OK, and then we create. That's taken quite a while just to create, so I've skipped forward a little bit. We can now check to make sure that that this has worked. So you go into settings and then you go down to project, and you want to have a look at the project interpreter, and you can see that our interpreter is Python 3.7 TorchReID. Then the only additional thing you need to do is when you add a configuration, you will add a Python configuration. So you press this button, Python, and you'll take it to the path that you want to run, which I don't know exactly what that is yet, but usually it'll be a train.py or test.py, or sometimes it'll be main.py, depending on what structure your project has. And the thing that we need to know for now is that this Python interpreter here should also be Python 3.7 TorchReID. So it should be mapping to the same Anaconda environment that you've been using already. So this is going to be to tell the system which file it wants to run, and then you'll put parameters in here. So the parameters might be the number of neurons that you have in your layer. It could be your learning rate. It could be the name of the file that you want to output. These are just things where it's going to be stuff like this will be the name of the parameter, and then you will just type in what you want the name to be. Very similar to what we had when we first constructed, when we first asked this to create, we have this -- name TorchReID. I nearly forgot that some of these packages didn't actually install, so I'm going to show you how to sort this problem if it happens. So the virtual environment is created, but we've already activated it. So when we do this conda activate TorchReID, you can see that we're in this TorchReID environment now. So we can install things within this environment. So I'm just going to show you for Opencv Python as an example. Instead of doing conda activate, because if we did conda activate, instead of doing conda install, if we do that, it seems like it can't find it. Yeah, so we get this packages are not available from current channels. Instead, we are going to do a pip install. And it's exactly the same formatting. We just switch conda to pip. Usually the advice is that you do all of the packages that you can with conda, and only when you've exhausted, when you've installed every single thing that you want with conda, then you start adding the additional stuff that you couldn't find using conda with this pip command instead. So Opencv Python worked. We're going to do the same with tb nightly, gdown, and yaks, I think it was. So let's just try yaks again. So you'll see that this is quite common, that there are a bunch of libraries that are available in pip that aren't available with conda. So if you have this problem, maybe just try installing with pip.